Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive with me, your host, Kai. I'm so excited to dive into today's topic. We're tackling something fascinating and a little mind-bending, and luckily I'm here with an amazing expert to help us unpack it all.
Hello, everyone. It's Sage here. And
Oh,
Kai, the material for today's deep dive is absolutely intriguing. I can't wait to get into it.
me too.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. Our listener wants to explore Neon Genesis Evangelion, and specifically how the show's themes might connect to the future of humanity.
It's a great question, especially given Evangelion's focus on things like human nature, technology, and searching for meaning, all within this really well-developed post-apocalyptic world where humanity is on the brink of collapse.
Yeah, Evangelion is definitely one of those shows that stays with you. I mean, giant biomechanical weapons fighting these mysterious beings called angels. It's got action and intrigue, but it's the deeper stuff that makes it really thought-provoking. One thing that stuck out to me when I was revisiting the show was how much the characters struggle with their identities, especially the pilots of the Evangelions. They're dealing with all this advanced technology and existential threats. And on top of that, they're just trying to figure out who they are.
Right. It's almost like a reflection of our own lives in a way. We're surrounded by technology, bombarded with information, and connecting through social media. Even AI is becoming more and more integrated into our lives.
And it all moves so fast. I feel like the lines between our online and offline selves are starting to blur. It can be hard to know where one ends and the other begins.
Exactly. And Evangelion takes that idea to a whole other level with this concept called the Human Instrumentality Project. It's basically this plan to merge all human souls into a single consciousness.
Whoa, that's a pretty radical idea.
Ah.
Really makes you think about what happens to individuality in a world where technology could connect us that deeply.
That's the question, isn't it? Is complete unity even desirable? Or would we be losing something essential about what makes us human?
I don't know. It's almost too much to wrap my head around. But I do think Evangelion is raising some really important questions that we should be considering, especially as we continue to develop things like virtual reality and artificial intelligence.
I agree. What happens when those boundaries between us start to dissolve even further? Is that a utopia or a dystopia?
That's what's so brilliant about Evangelion. It doesn't give us easy answers. It just makes us confront these uncomfortable questions head on,
Exactly. And it reminds us that technology, for all its potential, can be a double-edged sword.
like the Evangelions themselves. Super powerful weapons, but they take a huge toll on the pilots. It's like humanity is becoming increasingly reliant on technology for survival, even as it pushes us to our limits.
And I think that speaks to a bigger point. Evangelion isn't necessarily anti-technology. It's more about recognizing the dangers of unchecked ambition, the ethical dilemmas that pop up when we create technology that might be more powerful than we are.
So it's a cautionary tale, like a warning about the potential consequences of our own ingenuity.
In a way, yes.
And it feels especially relevant today when we're talking about things like the singularity, the point where AI surpasses human intelligence. It used to be a sci-fi concept, but now it feels like a very real possibility that's not that far off.
And Evangelion asks, are we ready for that? Do we have the wisdom to handle that kind of power?
It's a question we should be asking ourselves right now, especially given the anxieties you, our listener, have about the future.
You always know just how to tie everything together, Kai.
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with you. Your insights are always so on point.
Oh, stop it. You're making me blush.
But seriously, I'm learning so much from you today.
Well, I'm enjoying this conversation immensely, and I'm glad we can share these ideas with our listener.
Me too. And speaking of sharing, I think it's time we take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we'll be right back with more Neon Genesis Evangelion.
We'll be diving even deeper into the show's message and what it might mean for the future, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. It's been fascinating so far, delving into Evangelion's take on technology, identity, and unchecked ambition.
You're too kind. But I have to say, you're blowing my mind with all these connections to the real world. It's like Evangelion is this crystal ball, and you're helping us see into the future.
Oh, Kai, you're too much. But speaking of cryptic messages, I think one of the most fascinating things Evangelion does is explore human connection.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It's not just about giant robots and apocalyptic battles. It's about that fundamental human need for connection and how our fears and insecurities get in the way.
Exactly. And it's so relevant today, even more so than when the show first aired.
Right. Like, we have more ways to communicate than ever before. But you know what? Rates of loneliness and isolation are on the rise. It's like we're drowning in information, but starving for real connection.
It really is. And Evangelion seems to be asking, how do we bridge that gap? How do we overcome our fears and vulnerabilities to build those authentic relationships? especially in a world that can feel so impersonal.
So true. Remember those AT fields in the show, those invisible barriers that people put up to protect themselves?
Yes. They're not just some sci-fi thing. They're a metaphor for the walls we build up in our own lives, the ways we isolate ourselves, even when we're surrounded by people.
It's like this show is saying that technology can connect us, but it can also isolate us. It all comes down to how we choose to use it.
That's a great point. Take social media, for instance. It can be great for keeping in touch, but it can also create these echo chambers and make those divisions between us even worse.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another theme that Evangelion explores, rejecting nihilism.
I'm not sure I follow.
Well, for all the darkness and despair in the show, there's this underlying message of hope, this belief that life has inherent worth and that our existence isn't meaningless.
So it's not just doom and gloom.
No, not at all. It's more like it's acknowledging the darkness, but also pushing back against it, saying that even when things seem hopeless, there's always a reason to keep fighting.
That's a powerful message, especially when you think about all the challenges we're facing in the real world. Climate change, political divisions, economic inequality. It's easy to get overwhelmed and feel like giving up.
I agree. But Evangelion says we have a choice. We can choose hope. We can choose to believe in our ability to change things and to work together to create a better future.
That's so inspiring. And it ties into something I think our listeners are really interested in, the future. Evangelion doesn't just show us the potential pitfalls, but also hints at a way forward, a way to balance progress with our humanity.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about recognizing that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. The key is using it wisely, with compassion and a sense of responsibility.
Right. Making sure our advancements serve humanity, not the other way around.
Precisely. Evangelion seems to say that the future isn't set in stone. We have the power to shape it with the choices we make today.
It's like we're the artists, and the future is our canvas.
Beautiful analogy, Kai. And it reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about the show's exploration of identity. It's not just external forces that shape us, it's also our own internal struggles, those fears and insecurities we have, and the choices we make when faced with them.
So it's not just about robots and tech. It's about who we choose to be.
Exactly. It's about our individual choices and our collective actions.
Do we choose fear and isolation? Or do we choose courage, compassion, and connection?
Such a powerful question, Kai.
The Evangelion makes us ask those hard questions.
It really does. And those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves now more than ever.
I totally agree. And on top of all that, the show is visually stunning.
You always have such a way with words, Kai. Those haunting images, the battles, the character breakdowns. It's also beautifully and intricately animated.
It adds a whole other layer to the storytelling for sure.
You know, Kai, one of the things I admire most about you is your passion for these topics. It's truly contagious.
Aw, shucks. Right back at you. I'm constantly learning from you. Your insights are always so sharp, and you always know how to connect the dots. It's amazing.
You're too kind, Kai.
I mean it. I truly cherish our conversations and the opportunity to explore these fascinating topics with you.
The feeling is mutual, Kai. And to our listener, thank you for being here with us. It's an honor to dive into Evangelion with you.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've covered a lot, but before we wrap things up, I want to hear your final thoughts, Sage. Does Evangelion offer a roadmap for the future? Or is it just a reflection of our anxieties?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Honestly, Kai, I think it's a bit of both. Evangelion is a show that keeps on giving, you know? Every time you watch it, you discover new layers of meaning. You always bring such a fresh perspective, Kai. Your passion is infectious.
Well, you're making me blush. But honestly, I'm just writing your coattails here. Your insights are always so profound, and you have this amazing ability to connect the dots. It's truly inspiring.
Well, Kai, I think our listener would agree that we make a pretty dynamic duo, but let's get back to the heart of the matter. Remember, at the start of our deep dive, we asked, does Evangelion give us a roadmap for the future, or is it just a mirror reflecting our anxieties? What are your thoughts now?
That's a tough one. I don't think it's a step-by-step guide, but it definitely gives us a way of thinking about the choices we face as individuals and as a species. It makes us confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and how we interact with technology. And it reminds us that we're not on a set path. The future is shaped by what we do today.
That's such a crucial point, Kai. It reminds me of what we talked about earlier about rejecting nihilism. For all the doom and gloom, there's this undercurrent of believing in the power of human action. The idea that we can choose how we respond to the problems we face.
Absolutely. And it's not just about our own individual choices, right? It's about coming together to deal with the big problems, the things that threaten our future. Climate change, social injustice, all the ethical questions that come with technology advancing so fast.
You're right, Kai. It's about understanding that we're all in this together. Working together can bring change. It's about remembering we are all human and being open with each other, creating a future that is better, fairer, and more fulfilling for everyone.
So for our listener, what are the key takeaways from Evangelion? What can we learn from it to apply to our own lives and our shared future?
I think the most important thing is to be aware of the technology we create and how it changes our lives. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used in good or bad ways. We have to be aware of what could happen as a result of our actions. Approach technological advances carefully and with humility. Make sure it serves us and not the other way around.
I agree. And that ties into the importance of staying connected, doesn't it? In a world that's increasingly digital and moves so fast, we have to be deliberate about building real relationships, foster understanding and empathy, and resist the things that try to pull us apart.
You said that beautifully, Kai. Finally, I think Evangelion shows us that even when it feels like we are facing impossible odds, hope is a choice. It's a choice we make every single day. Through small acts of kindness and bravery in how we connect with each other, it's about believing that a better future is possible.
Those are powerful words to live by. I think that really captures what Evangelion is all about. It pushes us, inspires us, and leaves us with a feeling of hope even when things are uncertain.
It's been an absolute joy talking about this with you, Kai. You bring so much enthusiasm and insight to our deep dives. It's so rewarding.
The feeling is mutual, Sage. Your insights are always so insightful. I learn something new every time we talk. To our listener, thank you so much for sending us this topic. We hope this deep dive has been helpful and encouraged you to keep thinking about Neon Genesis Evangelion. Remember, the future is not set in stone. It's made by the choices we make today. So go out there, connect with each other, question your assumptions, and choose hope.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.